Having survived the uncharted battlefields of other survival horrors, I thought I knew the face of modern dread. But Cronos the New Dawn showed me an entirely new visage, one encased in cold steel and reflective glass, wandering a world undone by plague and paradox. And when I first stepped into its nightmarish vision of alternate 1980s Poland, I immediately felt the weight of history and horror intertwined. Let's get nerdy. Cronos begins in Nowa Huta, a planned socialist district of Krakow, reimagined here as a retrofuturistic ruin. It is a city that feels both real and impossible. Brutalist towers loom over courtyards overtaken by flesh, neon signage flickering against cracked concrete, and Catholic iconography lies half buried beneath infection. This world is not just the backdrop, it's the argument. Every corner whispers about the promise of collectivism, and every collapsed street shows its failure. The change, a pandemic that wrapped ordinary citizens into grotesque orphans, lingers everywhere. Notes left behind tells of quarantines, lockdowns, and promises of salvation that never arrived. The infection does not feel tacked on. It feels born of ideology itself, as though the dream of unity metastasized into biological nightmare. I felt unsettled even when nothing moved, because the architecture itself looked complicit. Time fractures adds another layer. The traveler's device allows you to briefly rewind the environment. Broken stairs reform, power grids hum back to life, flooded basements drain into their past state. It is not a puzzle gimmick. It is an atmosphere made interactive. One minute I was standing in a factory reduced to rubble, the next I was walking its floor during its prime. It made the world feel unstable, as if even history couldn't be trusted. The strength of Cronos' atmosphere lies in that instability. You never know whether you're seeing the city as it was, or as it is, or as it will become. That uncertainty makes the horror less about jump scares and more about context. The dread of a society that devoured itself, and the knowledge that you are walking through its bones. The traveler, faceless and silent, is both protagonist and cipher. She is sent by the collective to uncover what happened here, but she has no identity beyond the mission. It fits the ideological themes, an individual erased in service of society, but it comes at a cost. When the world collapses around her, she never flinches. When revelation hits, she never reacts. Emotional scenes are left for the player to feel alone, and sometimes that distance dulls the impact. Cronos relies instead on fragments to tell its story. Notes scrawled on torn paper, cassette tapes recorded in desperation, graffiti screaming in defiance. These shards of humanity are what hooked me. I remember one audio log where a doctor swore his patient didn't suffer. I knew it was a lie, but hearing him try to convince himself broke me more than any cutscene could. The most powerful tool, though, is the memory extraction. With a grotesque glove that stabs into skulls, the traveler absorbs the last thoughts of the dead. These scenes are disturbing to watch, but they linger long after because the voices never fade. They echo later as whispers, overlapping memories that weigh on her mind. A grieving mother's lullaby, a soldier's confession, a priest's prayer. They accumulate until it feels like you are carrying the dead with you. The overarching narrative struggles though. It drifts for long stretches, then rushes into conclusion, into ambiguity. By the end, I was left piecing together implications rather than revelations. But the fragments kept me going. Cronos is less about uncovering a clean mystery and more about listening to echoes, individual voices drowning in a society that demanded their sacrifice. Visually, Cronos thrives on dissonance. One street looks like a historic photo of Krakow, another looks like something sculpted by an alien hand. Brutalist blocks are consumed by red growth. monuments to socialism twisted into flesh statues, and the mutants themselves look engineered rather than evolved. They are not random monsters. They are propaganda turned grotesque, as if ideology and infection merged into one. The Traveler's design is equally striking, a figure encased in a heavy suit, helmet blank, movements laden. Her anonymity turns her into another symbol, a human swallowed by machinery. It makes for haunting imagery, especially when she stands against creatures that are the inverse, flesh overwhelmed by too much humanity. But it's audio that makes Cronos unbearable in the best way possible. The silence is weaponized, walking an empty corridor with nothing but the hiss of pipes, and the Traveler's breathing is far more terrifying than any scripted scare. Combat shatters that silence with gunfire, screams and wet tearing of bodies, only for quiet to return like a suffocating blanket. Playing with headphones is essential, not just for immersion, but for survival. You will hear enemies long before you see them. Even small sounds carry weight. The clang of machinery rewound into life, the crackles of a tape recorder, the plaintive meow of a cat in the distance. Each one cuts through the oppressive silence like a flare in the dark, reminding you that sound in Cronos is never just background, it's the pulse of the world itself. Cronos builds its systems on scarcity. Inventory space is cruelly tight, ammo is limited to the point of obsession, health kits are rare luxuries, and I often left items behind knowing I might regret it later, but was forced to choose. This constant triage is not just a mechanic, it is a mindset that the game demands. Combat intensifies that mindset. Weapons can be charged for extra power, but standing still long enough to charge means gambling your life. Every shot is a risk assessment, fire now or wait, kill an enemy and you'll face another decision. Burn the corpses with scarce fuel or move on and risk a nearby monster merging with it. And the merge mechanic is Cronos' signature. It transforms every fight into an equation of survival. The first time I watched a small creature absorb corpses into a towering monstrosity, I knew I had failed. Not because the game threw something cheap at me, but because I wasn't careful enough. This mechanic makes every encounter feel alive. I remember kiting a swarm into a hallway, torching them before they could merge, then finishing the survivors with a single shotgun blast that pierced multiple bodies. Those moments felt tactical, improvisational, and thrilling. But eventually repetition does set in. Enemy types are limited, and once patterns are learned, the formula conserve ammo, aim true, burn corpses, repeat, it can feel predictable. Difficulty spike also risks frustration. More than once I had to respec entirely, funneling upgrades into just 2 weapons to brute force through a wall the game threw at me. Survival, yes, but survival that felt designed to break patience as much as skill. Exploration follows the same harsh logic. Optional rooms promise lore or resources, but are always guarded by monsters. The game really lets you relax. Even moments of quiet exploration carry the knowledge that you are risking life for scraps. Yet I kept detouring anyway, because in Cronos, attentiveness is the only advantage the player has. Amid all the bleakness, the stray cats are almost absurd. Hidden in closet, attics and alleys, they can be rescued for small rewards. But more importantly, they provide a moment of warmth. The sound of a meow became a reason to push into another dark room. It's a small side activity, but it gave the world texture, and for completionists, it becomes another thread in the tapestry of survival. Cronos was a punishing game to 100%. But it was also one of the most thematically consistent completionist runs I've ever played. The achievement list covers story completion, every cat rescued, every note read, every memory extracted, every weapon upgraded, and careful management of merge mechanics. This is not a list of busy work. Each achievement forces you to engage with a system deeply. Missing a corpse and failing to burn it may cost you later. Skipping a detour might deny you not just lore, but the ammo needed for a brutal encounter. Even the cats tie into this design, rewarding exploration and persistence rather than checkbox hunting. On the critical path, Cronos can be finished in under 20 hours. For completion, expect at least 40. This time isn't filler, fortunately, it's scrutiny. Every corner searched, every note cross-referenced, every body managed. As a completionist, I found this exhausting, but the exhaustion at least felt well earned. Cronos doesn't just test your patience, it demands you to embody the travel's paranoia. To finish it completely is to adopt her mindset, meticulous, obsessive, unwilling to waste anything. And very few games make 100% completion feel so directly tied to their themes. Cronos: The New Dawn is a survival horror distilled into scarcity, ideology and mutation. It may frustrate with its faceless protagonist, uneven pacing and repetition, but it also astonishes with its atmosphere, its merge mechanic, and its relentless commitment to making every resource matter. As a completionist, it was one of the most demanding runs I've endured. It drained me, tested my patience, and left me wrung out. But it also gave me moments I'll never forget, touching corpses to stop a fusion, listening to voices of the dead bleed into my own mind, rescuing a cat from a nightmare. Cronos may not be a new dawn for survival horror, but it is a chilling echo worth hearing. Like, share, subscribe, and until next time, stay nerdy.